IIP data disappoints the economy. IIP for the month of August slows to 0.6%. IIP was 2.8% in the previous month. Finance Minister P. Chidambaram dismisses IMF's growth projection of 3.75% for India as pessimistic. Says India will grow by 5 to 5.5% in financial year 2013-14. Earnings season begins with a big bang. Infosys comes out with its Q2 numbers, net profit up by 1.6%, revenues up by 31.5%, stocks ends 4% up. Stellar rally at the Dalal Street. Sensex ends at 20,529 levels, up by 256 points. Nifty gains 75 points to end at just 3 points short of 6,100 mark. Rupee closes at 61.07 against the dollar. Day 11 of the US shutdown, 15,000 private sector employees filed for unemployment benefits. US Republicans and Obama in useful debt crisis talks, but no breakthrough till now. And we have two specials lined up. The God of Cricket endorses 15 major brands, charges between 5 to 6 crore rupees per endorsement. We will understand brand Sachin in our special. And Supreme Court directs the central government to provide 3% job reservation to disabled persons. We bring out how differently abled are placed in society and what's their prospects of getting a job. Hello and welcome to Doordarshan News. I am Sidhant, Sibal and you're watching a Biz Wrap, your one-stop destination to all the business news of the day. We have a power-packed show lined up from Infosys Q2 results to stellar performances of the markets. Let's begin with some not-so-good news. Factory output has slowed. IIP for the month of August stood at just 0.6% against 2.8% in the previous month. Weak IIP numbers was primarily due to weak investment and consumer demand. The manufacturing sector, which constitutes about 76% of industrial production, crawled up just 0.1% from a year earlier. Capital goods production, a barometer for investments in the economy, contracted by 2% in August from a year earlier. The consumer goods sector also witnessed negative growth of 0.8%. But there is good news also. It was a stellar rally at the stock markets. Both Sensex and Nifty hit 3 weeks high. Primary reason for the rally was good Q2 numbers of Infi and gains in rupee. The market sentiments were also boosted by gains in European and Asian stock, triggered by hopes that US lawmakers will lift the debt limit and avoid a default. The 30-share benchmark Sensex closed at 20,529 levels, up by 256 points. Nifty gained 75 points to end just 3 points short of the 6,100 mark, that's 6,096 levels. IT banking stocks led the rally. Buying was also seen in mid-cap and small-cap space, which were up by between 2 to 3%. The major gainers on the chart were led by ICICI Bank, Infosys, L&T, Tata Motors, Maruti Suzuki, which were up by between 3 to 5%. Losers on the chart were Coal India, Tata Power, NTPC, Hindalco and Sun Pharma, which were down by between 4 to 2%. On to rupee, the rupee ended at 61.07 against the dollar. It gained 32 paise. This is the rupee's highest closing level since August 8. Clearly, rupee also just nearing that crucial 61 mark against the dollar. On Thursday, it closed at 61.39 against the dollar. On to global market action, the Asian stock edged higher amidst hope of US lawmakers will lift the debt limit and avoid a default. Key benchmark indices in China, Singapore, South Korea, Hong Kong, Taiwan and Indonesia rose by between 0.06% to 1.7%. European shares edged higher on optimism that US lawmakers would reach an agreement on raising the nation's debt limit to avoid a default. The key benchmark indices in UK and Germany were up by between 0.32% to 0.51%. In France, the CAC 40 index was off 0.06%. On to the big Infosys number. Kicking off the second quarter earnings season on a high note, the country's second largest software services firm Infosys came out with its Q2 results. Infosys reported profit of 2,410 crore rupees and revenue at 12,965 crore rupees. It raised FY14 revenue growth forecast to 9 to 10% versus earlier guidance of 6 to 10%. But attrition rate jumped to 17.3% in September quarter. This despite an average increment of 8% for Infi's India employees in July. More in this report.
It was an expected surprise. IT major Infosys posted better than expected results for second quarter. Consolidated net profit for second quarter was up 1.6% on year-on-year basis and stood up at Rs 2,407 crore. The IT major Infosys reported a net profit of Rs 2,407 crore for quarter ended September 2013 as compared to a net profit of Rs 2,374 crore in last quarter, which is a rise of 1.6%. Meanwhile, the company has raised the FY14 sales guidance to 9 to 10% against 6 to 10%. The consolidated revenues in rupees term increased to Rs 12,965 crore, up 15.07% as against Rs 11,267 crore in previous quarter. Overall, 12,168 employees joined Infosys and its subsidiaries during the July-September quarter. The company added 68 clients during the quarter and had declared an interim dividend of Rs 20 per share. The magic can be credited to the comeback man N.R. Narayan Murthy. Murthy has been trying to put the house in order at Infosys, which has led to significant reorganization of the company and has led to several key executives leaving the firm. Business Desk, DD News.
So Murthy magic there. Time for another short break. Lots more on the other side.
पप्पू एक सॉलिड हीरो है, समझे सबको ये जीरो है। पप्पू की जीन्स कमाल है, पप्पू की वॉच धमाल, पर पप्पू सुन नहीं सकता, क्यों बहरा है? हथेली पे जान है, कानों में हेडफोन ऑन है। पप्पू था एक सॉलिड हीरो।
पप्पू ना बने। सड़क पर चलते समय मोबाइल और हेडफोन्स का प्रयोग ना करें। सड़क नियमों का पालन करें। जिंदगी आपकी है, सोचना आपको है।
दिल या साथी, चाहे कुछ भी कहे, जो कॉन्डम का साथ न छोड़े वही है मुकद्दर का सिकंदर।
Welcome back. Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh today said that there is complete convergence of ideas between India and Indonesia. Addressing the media with Indonesian President Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono, Dr. Singh said that the two countries enjoy a strong, durable and action-oriented partnership. A total of 6 agreements on technology, trade, anti-corruption and anti-narcotic measures were signed between the countries. Further, India and Indonesia agreed to explore the collaboration in sales and co-production of defense equipments. Both the countries have concluded an extradition treaty and are now exploring an agreement on transfer of sentenced persons. Earlier in the day, Dr. Singh visited Kalibata Heroes Cemetery to pay tributes to the heroes who won freedom for the country. Prime Minister laid a wreath in the memory of the war heroes. Dismissing IMF's growth projection of 3.75% for India as pessimistic, Finance Minister P. Chidambaram has said that country's economy is expected to grow by between 5 to 5.5% in the current financial year. This 5% growth primarily on the back of a good monsoon, robust farm output and impact of reform measures undertaken by the government. Defending the FDI policy amidst reservations being raised by retail giants like Walmart, Chidambaram said, and I quote, "They always asked for more but were expected to work within the policy framework." Chidambaram said that growth slowed in the crisis year 2008-9, but India took the world by surprise by rebounding quickly from the slow growth of 6.7% in that year to record growth rates of 8.6% in 2009-10. Finance Minister P. Chidambaram has also supported Civil Aviation Minister Ajit Singh's suggestion on doing away with a rule that bars Indian carriers from flying abroad unless they complete 5 years of service and own 20 aircraft fleet. Finance Minister P. Chidambaram also said that Congress-led UPA government will be voted back to power for third term in the next year's general elections. On to the US shutdown. It's day 11 of the US shutdown. About 15,000 private sector employees have now filed for unemployment benefits due to shutdown at the US Labor Department. Meanwhile, as the October 17th deadline for debt limit approaches near, US Republicans and Obama finally talked. Republicans have offered to extend government's borrowing authority beyond the deadline, temporarily putting off a default. Both the sides said they had a useful debt crisis talks. While no breakthrough was achieved, both sides say they will continue to talk.
Republicans in the U.S. House of Representatives have met President Barack Obama amid renewed efforts to avert a looming debt crisis. Both sides described the 90-minute meeting as useful but said no decision was made. They agreed to keep talking.
It's time for these negotiations and this conversation to begin, and I would hope that the President will look at this as an opportunity.
Republicans have offered the President a short-term debt limit increase to stop the default. In return, they want Mr. Obama to further negotiate on the budget dispute that has partially closed the US government. Officials have warned the US risk default on 17th of October if the nation's borrowing limit is not increased. Meanwhile, quick progress is also what officials gathering for International Monetary Fund and World Bank meetings in Washington want to see to avoid a global meltdown.
We are watching carefully, and we just urge all policymakers to move quickly to come to some resolution because the impacts are going to be severe.
The impasse over the debt limit has already rattled markets and increased the interest rates for 1-month US T-bills. Meanwhile, the US shutdown continues. Hundreds of thousands of federal employees have been out of work since the shutdown began. And now, private firms from arms makers to motels have begun to lay off the workers. Business Desk, DD News.
So just a week left before that October 17th deadline. On to our next story. In a step to reverse high degree of exclusion of a significant section of population, the Supreme Court has directed the central and the state governments to ensure reservation of at least 3% of all jobs for disabled. The Apex Court said that it's an alarming reality that disabled persons are not getting jobs because of various social barriers forcing them to live life in poverty. The court pointed out that technological advancement can allow people to leap over disabilities. Let's understand how differently abled are placed in society and what are their prospects of getting a job. The Supreme Court has directed the Union Government and states to implement the Persons with Disabilities Act 1995 to provide 3% reservation in government jobs. The court has given 3 months to implement the order in letter and spirit. But let's look at the status of differently abled in the country. According to Census 2001, 2.13% of country's total population is differently abled. That makes 21 million the estimated size of differently abled. Geographically, 75% of differently abled are concentrated in rural areas and only 25% in urban. Of the disability, 49% suffer from eyesight-related ailment, 28% in movement, 6 and 7% suffer from hearing and speech impairment. Education levels in differently abled is also very low. 51% are illiterate. Only 26% are able to reach the primary level, 13% secondary level, and a mere 6% are above the secondary level. According to a study commissioned by the Planning Commission in 2008, reservation in government jobs for differently abled against identified jobs are around 3% in Group A, 4% in Group B, 4% in Group C, 3% in Group D. Reservation in public sector units for differently abled against the identified jobs are 3% in Group A, 9% in Group B, 5% in Group C, and 7% in Group D. The Supreme Court has said that it's not a disability that comes in the way of employment, but social barriers. Hopefully, with the new Supreme Court order, new opportunities will be opened for differently abled in all the sectors of the economy and provide cheer to all the differently abled people in the country. With camera person Aluwalia, this is Sidhant, Sibal, DD News, New Delhi. Indian businesses are largely cool to Greece. Well, that's according to an international survey. The survey says many Indian companies do not have a formal policy statement that forbid paying of bribe to secure business. Survey also says that only 24% of Indian companies have whistleblowing systems where employees can make confidential reports on concerns related to corruption. Globally, this figure is 40%. Indian companies are against bribes but lack policies on it to secure business contracts. That's according to a survey. The survey shows that Indian companies, like many of their international counterparts, are unprepared to meet the challenges of adhering to international anti-corruption laws. Let's see how Indian companies fare. Around 62% of Indian business houses do not have a formal no-bribe policy as compared to 23% of US and 35% of global companies. That's a high percentage. Next, 91% of Indian companies do not have specialized anti-corruption training for employees as compared to 74% of global and 52% of US companies. But Indian companies do fare better in certain places. 73% of Indian firms have a standard clause in agreements with third parties barring them from paying bribes on companies' behalf, better than global average of 64%. The biggest concern for Indian companies is the pressure to pay. The top two greatest concerns for Indian companies are demand for operational bribes, that's 76%, and risks associated with third parties, 69%. Survey said over 3/4 of Indian companies viewed with less concern the issue of bribes to secure business contracts. Only 22% cited bribes for deals as the greatest concern, as compared to 35% of US and 29% of global respondents. Control Risks, a global risk consulting firm, and the Economist Intelligence Unit or EIU conducted a survey globally to examine their attitude towards bribery and corruption risks. The three countries with the largest numbers of respondents in the survey were India with 45 companies, the US with 44 companies, and the UK with 43 companies. Business Desk, DD News. Will brand Sachin Tendulkar, which sells everything from chocolate drinks to houses, remain intact after he bids goodbye? Yes, say some from the world of advertising. The Master Blaster, who used to retire after playing his 20th test against West Indies next month, will sustain his appeal. Currently, he endorses around 15 brands including Toshiba, BMW, Adidas, Coca-Cola, Boost. Here's a special report.
The god of cricket, Sachin Tendulkar, will retire and will end his cricketing innings after his 200th test match against West Indies. Master Blaster holds many records on his name. However, from business point of view, Sachin Tendulkar holds maximum records. Major brands across the globe would continue with Sachin Tendulkar as their brand ambassador. Sachin has done endorsements for Boost, Adidas, Pepsi, Coca-Cola, ITC, Aviva, Canon, Toshiba, Reynolds, BMW, Future Group, Musafir.com, Luminous Power Technology and many more. According to estimates, charges per endorsement ranges between 5 to 6 crore rupees. According to Forbes magazine, God of Cricket's earnings were pegged at $22 million for June 2013 and endorsements counted for a major share of his income at $18 billion. And also, Master Blaster was the 51st richest player in 2012 according to the Forbes magazine. Boost is associated with Sachin Tendulkar since Sachin started playing cricket. Adidas is the brand which is associated with Sachin since last 16 years. Many brands are associated with Sachin since he started playing cricket and are still with Sachin. This itself creates a new record for Sachin Tendulkar. Business Desk, DD News.
So brand Sachin there. On to the next story. Coal Minister Shri Prakash Jaiswal today expressed hope that the auction of coal blocks to be allocated to private firms would begin by December. The statement comes close on the heels of the Cabinet approving the methodology for auctioning coal blocks. Coal Minister also said that it is taking time as the Coal Ministry wants explored blocks to be allocated to the private firms. Last month, the Cabinet had approved the methodology for auctioning coal blocks, providing for upfront and production-linked payments and benchmarking of coal sale prices.
सरकार कोशिश नहीं कर रही है, सरकार सफलता की ओर धीरे धीरे करके बढ़ रही है और हम उम्मीद करते हैं कि हमें सफलता प्राप्त होगी। हालांकि अभी कैबिनेट का डिसीजन होना है। कैबिनेट अगर डिसीजन लेगी तो हम उम्मीड करते हैं कि डिसइन्वेस्टमेंट होगा।
Recently, a weak rupee was giving headache to policymakers, but it is also giving a positive impact. A weak rupee coupled with a range of quality healthcare options is driving a boom in India's medical tourism industry. Take a look at this report of how medical tourism in the country is booming due to a weak rupee.
These Nigerian twins were born conjoined. They were recently separated by doctors in India. Their survival, the perfect advert for a booming medical tourism industry. A weak rupee is giving it a further boost. One new study by a leading industry body says a private procedure that used to cost a foreigner $10,000 can now be bought for just $7,000.
The patients who are coming in large number, particularly from the Middle East and Asian countries, they are paying nearly around 30 to 35% less because the rupee has been weakened over a period of time.
The report also suggests there has been a 40% increase in the number of medical tourists. Dr. Arun Prasad is a surgeon at a hospital in Delhi. He says 50 of the 600 patients he has operated on in the past year have come from abroad, particularly from Middle East.
The bottom line always is the cost. So when you're talking about comparing the cost of coming to India versus say going to the States, it is much cheaper here.
Private healthcare facilities around the country have improved significantly in recent years. Many foreign doctors now come to train and attend conferences. The hospitals themselves are also seeing an opportunity working with insurance companies and even tour operators. Medical tourism is thought to be worth around $1.2 billion in India. Business Desk, DD News.
Now let's get more news of business from around the world in our business wrap. Close on the heels of a fresh rise in passenger fares, Railways has decided to further hike the fares of trains such as Rajdhani, Shatabdi and Duronto effective from October 17th. The ticket rates of Rajdhani, Shatabdi and Duronto trains will go up further by about 25 to 27 rupees with an upward revision in food tariff. The UN-backed chemical weapons watchdog, the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, today won the Nobel Peace Prize. Set up in 1997 to eliminate all chemical weapons worldwide, OPCW has 189 member states, and the mission gained critical importance this year after a sarin gas strike in the suburbs of Damascus, Syria, which killed around 1,400 people in August. Pakistani teenage activist Malala Yousafzai was widely tipped to win the Nobel Peace Prize. On to the next story. On the auspicious occasion of the 7th day of Navratra, devotees are queuing up for Ma Kali's Puja. Worshipped across the country with much enthusiasm, the worship holds a great significance for warding off all evils in one's life. Known as Shubhamkari, the celebrations for Puja are in full swing across the country. And the Badshah of Bollywood, Amitabh Bachchan, celebrates his 71st birthday today. Having starred in over 150 films in a career spanning more than 4 decades, Bachchan continues to hold sway over millions of his fans on big screen as well as on TV.
तू खुद बोल तेरे को मारने को सक हाँ अरे एंथनी भाई
On to repeat headlines now. IIP data disappoints the economy. IIP for the month of August slows to 0.6%. IIP was 2.8% in the previous month. Finance Minister P. Chidambaram dismisses IMF's growth projection of 3.75% for India as pessimistic. Says India will grow by between 5 to 5.5% in financial year 13-14. Earnings season begins with a big bang. Infosys comes out with Q2 number. Net profit up by 1.6%, revenues up by 31.5%, stock ends 4% up. Stellar rally at the Dalal Street. Sensex ends 20,529 levels, up by 256 points. Nifty gains 75 points to end just 3 points short of 6,100 mark. Day 11 of the US shutdown. 15,000 private sector employees filed for unemployment benefits. US Republicans and Obama in useful debt crisis talks, but no breakthrough till now. Well, that's all in today's edition of Business Wrap. Thanks for watching. Namaskar.